Hey everybody, Michael Snyder here, Pacific Northwest Weather Watch. Today is August 14th, and right now we're looking at the infrared satellite imagery here. It's kind of showing this onshore flow going on across much of the region here. But we are going to start to warm up today, and we're really going to start to turn up the heat early next week here, and then on into mid and later next week as well. Looking at this, you can see we don't have any active thunderstorms now. This should remain the case here for the next few days, but there will be a threat later on in through the period. We'll continue to monitor that here coming up. And looking at the visible satellite imagery here, you can see the White River fire going on across near Lake Wenatchee here, the east slopes of the Cascades. I had a friend telling me he could see smoke from that fire move over Lake Chelan yesterday. You can see some of the low clouds, western Washington, Oregon. Those should be burning off this afternoon. Nice, glorious sunshine, of course, across most of eastern Oregon, Washington. Those clouds moving across BC as that upper level low finally kicking up and out of our area for good. Now, taking a look here, I want to explain something on why the forecast is changing so much coming up here. You know, we're going through periods of calling for heat versus a little bit cooler, but a general warm period, but we're kind of not quite sure on what's going on as far as how severe the heat wave is going to be coming up here. So this is looking at the La Nina conditions. This is what's called the Walker circulation. You can see the convection, of course, goes up, spreads out, and then sinks downwards in different parts of the planet here. This is along the equator, but this activity also likes to go poleward too. And so there's usually very cold air over Siberia a lot of times. So you can imagine during a La Nina year, when you get this convection building up here, this warm air and this cold air here, you create a very powerful gradient off the coast of Asia here. And that can create all kinds of ridging and troughing downstream that affects us directly here in the Pacific Northwest. So La Nina, you can see the colder water along the equatorial region here of the Pacific Ocean. As these trade winds are stronger than normal, they push this sun-heated water that's along the surface into the western Pacific there, and it helps enhance this convection. Now, as you look at El Nino, the opposite is true. We have warmer here, weaker than normal trade winds. So this water gets to build up warmer here across the central Pacific Ocean. And you can see the displaced convection out over here near closer to Hawaii, or at least across the central equatorial region here. And again, the Walker circulation takes on a different feature here as we see these El Nino conditions emerge. This could happen in the next year or two. But this is why there's a more persistent jet stream into California, and generally why our winters are a little bit warmer here in the Pacific Northwest during El Nino conditions. So I'm showing you the circulation here. So stick with me here for a moment. Neutral conditions are similar to La Nina, just not quite as dramatic. But when we're looking at that, you can see the precipitable water here. You can see how the Western Pacific here gets its fair share of it. As you can see, it really dwarfs the amount that the Eastern Pacific get in the general intertropical convergence zone. It really increases as you get here, and that is enhanced during La Nina conditions. Now, here we're looking at an old tropical system here, or at least some subtropical moisture moving up into the northern latitudes. And as that does, this tends to enhance troughs and amplify ridges. So when you get these injections of tropical moisture, this really changes the pattern downstream. So that's why we've been having a little bit of difficulty just trying to pinpoint where this trough and ridge are going to form downstream of this activity. So you start introducing these tropical systems and tropical moisture, and it kind of throws a monkey wrench into the downstream waves that affect us here in the Pacific Northwest. Now, checking this out here, you can see there's that subtropical moisture. You see it kind of enhances that trough there, enhances this ridge. And this is the trough that's been messing with us for a little bit here. Will this be a little bit closer and we get more onshore flow? Or will this trough set up a little bit further to the west and bring us warmer conditions across the region here? That's what we're trying to figure out here. So you can see some of the difficulty in some of these forecasts, but we are definitely headed for a warmer period coming up here. You can see thunderstorms generally leaving the Pacific Northwest alone for a few days here. So checking out SeaTac here, 75 degrees yesterday, 3 degrees below average. You can see the average high is 78 this time of year. And as we go into next week, we're going to go probably well above average here, even maybe some record highs. You can see the record high of 88 there on Thursday, the 18th. Is in jeopardy. The European, the last run, had 90 for that day coming up here. So that's something to watch coming up here for Seattle. Here's Astoria, Oregon. You can see we've had several warm periods this summer. You saw the one in early April there too, and even February. You can see some of these record highs into the 90s. We get these offshore regimes, and you can really warm places up all the way out to the Washington, Oregon coast. A nice, enjoyable 69-degree average exists all the way into September for Astoria, Oregon there too. So nice place to live, nice place to visit out there, especially if you don't mind low clouds. So looking at the GFS ensemble mean, let's take a look at what's coming next week as far as a warm-up for the Pacific Northwest. This is an average of all 30 GFS ensemble runs. 500 millibars, 18,000 feet. We're trying to pick up general trough and ridge position. Ridge means warm. Trough means cooler. You can see the trough over the Gulf of Alaska here. And you can see the ridge start to build up through Monday night. Tuesday, it really gets going here. Builds well north across Alberta. And you can see that trough. Try to get a little bit closer here. But Thursday, probably the warmest day in this scenario, before we cool down a bit. But then you can see the GFS kind of try to build the ridge back up again as we go through later the weekend into the following week here. So we'll continue to monitor that. Some of the models showing that we are going to stay warm through the end of August here across Pacific Northwest. Now taking a look here, this is GFS deterministic. This is initial conditions here in the one model run that we just let run out by itself. And you can see that ridge builds all the way up across Alberta, well north across Canada. Trough digs across the region. Thursday, probably the warmest day for a bit of a cool down Friday. And this low kind of gets cut off here. The ridge rebuilds a little bit across Pacific Northwest here. And then we'll just have to monitor to see what this upper level low does. Maybe we get some thunderstorms with a pattern like this as well. We'll have to continue to monitor it. Now, taking a look here, European ensemble mean. This is the average of all 50 European ensemble members here, 500 millibars, 18,000 feet. You can see pretty good agreement here with this ridge building up through midweek here coming up. Probably Thursday, the warmest day, before we cool down a bit on Friday. And as we go through into the extended a little bit more, you can see the European also shows that ridge kind of rebuilding, and that trough, persistent troughing out of the Gulf of Alaska here continues across it continues to affect Alaska and just dig out over the Gulf of Alaska, helping us flirt with these ridges here off and on across our summer here for the Pacific Northwest. Here's the European control run. Now check this out. As we go into the ridge building here, Thursday warmest day, cools us down a bit. Upper level almost gets cut off here. Big trough digs out of the Gulf of Alaska here and really retrogrades. And look at this ridge and the extended of the European. This is just kind of fantasy, just something fun to look at here. But look at the power of this ridge across Pacific Northwest and the extended. Just something to kind of put in the back of my mind here and see how this works out in the extended here. Now this would be the inner 50 millibar temperatures. You can see the warm up occurring midweek, possibly a record high for Seattle on Thursday, a little bit of a cool down Friday, then maybe a bounce back on Sunday before we get another marine push Monday, and then maybe build another ridge over the area through the extended. But we'll continue to monitor that day by day. But look at some of those temperatures aloft across the region. It's almost pegging the scale for some of these areas here on the 850 millibar temperature anomaly map here. Now looking at Portland for the European yesterday afternoons, you can see the gradual warm up. Then we get to the mid 90s here, maybe even upper 90s here through midweek for a potential cool down coming after that. But this, we're not going to put much stock in the extended at this point. Here's Seattle, the gradual warm up. And look at this on the 18th, potentially flirting with 90 degrees. That would be the all-time daily record high. We would need to hit 89 on that day there. This is Tri-Cities, and I'm just going to call it here, folks. They're going to get this is a heat wave. I mean, these are some pretty extreme temperatures coming up here. We're talking temperatures over 105 for maybe 5 straight days for Tri-Cities. You can see the gradual warm up to get there. But this is pretty extreme heat out there, and hopefully we don't start to flirt with that rapid onset drought those conditions out there. And hopefully this isn't setting the stage for some forest fires as we go through the end of August into September here. Kamloops, eastern British Columbia. See the gradual warm up here, pretty warm conditions. And check this out on Sunday. That's almost 104 degrees Fahrenheit there. So pretty warm conditions coming for eastern British Columbia as well. Heat wave is on its way for the eastern portions of BC, Washington, Oregon. And you can see Bend. And keep in mind, Bend is at 3,600 feet here, flirting with 100 degrees possibly for a couple of these days as we go through later next week. This is the forest fire smoke on the Hur. You can see that White River fire going here, but we're still doing pretty good so far. Hopefully this big heat wave coming up here for the eastern portions, though, does not dry us out considerably and kick off some more fires, especially if we end that heat wave with some kind of monsoon moisture or upper level low moving across the region, bringing a lot of lightning again. Hopefully that doesn't kick off fires, but that's something to look for here in the future. 6 to 10 day temperature outlook released yesterday. You see a little bit lower confidence in that heat for western portions here, but we have pretty there's very likely above normal temperatures here for eastern Oregon, Washington, and this would extend up into BC, I believe, as well. 6 to 10 day precipitation outlook. They updated this a little bit. They included a little bit more of Oregon today, and that strong monsoon season continues down there. So yeah, we are looking for a heat wave east of the Cascades for Oregon, Washington, and probably some areas of British Columbia as well. We're looking for a few pretty warm days here, maybe even a record high for places like Seattle here coming up on in through next week. So it is going to definitely warm up, and we'll continue to watch the ebb and flow of this forecast as it evolves, because we're dealing with some upper level energy moving around on the west coast of North America too that could affect the forecast as well. Maybe bring a marine push unexpectedly that we just don't see right now. So anyway, guys, I hope you guys are having a good day. Enjoy that sunshine. Enjoy the warm up if you can. Hopefully it doesn't get too hot there in eastern Washington. We avoid those drought conditions. But anyway, we'll do this again tomorrow, and I'll talk to you then.